Hi everyone, we are here at EA with Dean and Jalpeesh, and we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive into game engines, which I am not equipped for. So what I actually did, and we'll get into that actually, because I'm going to ask you a few general questions, but I actually went as far as to ask Twitter, if you were watching a talk about game engines, what would you like to know? And I'll tell you the very first question in a minute. Because first, I want to know how long you guys have been in games in general.
So for me, I've been at EA and in games for the past 10 and a half years now, working with physics.
I love that EA really do retain people. Like you meet a lot of people, a bit like Media Molecule, that have been here for a really, really long time. And that speaks volumes about how important, the staff are to EA.
It's wonderful. Totally. I mean, in our group, it's kind of funny. We've got this group that's been kind of, I want to say like 14 years plus. All the way up to I think 25 years. There's like a concentration there, and then I'm one of the like new people, so like 10 years, and then beyond. And there's this gap where there's like no one in that space.
Amazing. Yeah, it's good retention. I like that. And Dean, I know it's been a little bit less for you, but how long have you?
I'm like an intern compared to Joe. So I've been here. I'm almost pushing 3 years now. So yeah. It's been good.
It's a good start to tenure. You've got a way to go, but you're getting there day by day. So let's talk about childhood memories of video games. What was your first, not necessarily first, but first kind of tangible, I love games feeling,
So mine's going way back to the Sinclair Spectrum. We had that when I was little. I didn't know what I was doing, but it's like, it was fun. My game formative years were on the Amiga. That was my thing. That sensible soccer. Any day, hands down of the week, best game ever.
Love it.
For me, I was a little bit more new school than that. So mine would have been Wolfenstein 3D. Yeah, I think that was the game that kind of, the whole 3D-ness of it and being able to move around. And then I think after that, it kind of led into that sort of like 3D shoot-'em-ups. And then became Duke Nukem, although that was a bit like kind of rude and like I wasn't.
But that's
like, my
why
parents were a bit funny about it, and like I could kind of play it, but it was really fun.
Fair enough. And if we're talking about, obviously we're here to showcase the wonderful talent of Guildford. So if we're talking about Guildford.Games, which would be your favourites? And they're all going to be watching, okay? So be nice.
So I'm going to go for No Man's Sky, something pretty cool. I mean, when they started off, they were hugely ambitious, which was great. Just being interested in that whole kind of space sim and that area, but just doing it so differently where you can land and do stuff, and the whole proceduralism of everything was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And so, the journey that they went on to go from kind of Joe Danger and then totally. Like, you're what? Okay, let's go with that. Incredible. That team, absolutely incredible. What about you, Dean?
Yeah, for me, theme park. Yeah,
it's a fun choice.
Recently found out that they came out of Guildford. I didn't
recently,
even know that. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'd hate to choose a favourite. It probably would be theme park.
Yeah.
Or
the
theme
killing
hospital.
of the rats as they were running around.
Yeah, right.
The
noise. Yeah, brilliant.
And the cleaning up the vomit. Oh yeah.
Loved those games. Okay, so we are here to talk about game engines, and as I said, I asked Twitter. The number one question from Twitter was, no, really, what is a game engine?
That's a good question.
If you guys could give us just a brief overview of what a game engine is.
Dean will be brief, otherwise I'll start rambling.
I'll give the most super high level one, and then Joel can give. Okay, so a game engine to me, if I was to explain it to my nan, would be, so in the same way that like someone uses Photoshop to make design things and make art.
We do not know what Photoshop is.
Just pretend she does. We make the Photoshop.
Okay.
That allows game designers and game engineers to make games.
That makes sense.
So we make the tools that allow them to do that. We don't actually make the games ourselves.
I feel like I've got that ironed out. And I know that I'm going to look at Janet.
Yeah, he's going to tell you a bit more.
We're going to unravel.
That's the high level.
Okay. Now, going a bit more, a little bit deeper. What is a game engine?
So going in a little bit deeper, it's really the collection of tools and technology that allow people to make a game in a nutshell. We provide functionality, like a physics engine or an animation system, or like loading and saving and being able to run on different consoles. You get that technology available for you, and then like Dean says, you can just go in, start making your games. Maybe you want to extend it and do some particular things yourself. Really that core system you just get for free.
See, I'm okay. I feel like I'm still in the room. I'm still in the conversation. I haven't blacked out. I'm still here. This is great. Okay, cool. So what are the kind of the origin or the evolution of Frostbite as an engine? Where did it start?
So Frostbite started with the DICE team over in Stockholm. So it was the engine that was made to make Battlefield.
Bad Company.
Bad Company was the title that then used Frostbite.
Okay.
And again, it was just like I said, that people were making that system for the other people at DICE to then make Battlefield on top. And so that's where its origins came through from DICE and working on more Battlefields, and then steadily as more people were able to access Frostbite, we started to make different games with it. So we made a Need for Speed The Run, we're Army of Two, and then we started kind of branching out onto different titles.
So it's a pretty, it's a robust engine, if that's a term that makes sense. Like it is something that you're planning on just keeping and kind of building out.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Exactly. We're trying to make more and more games out of it. I think right now, there's something like 13 or so games that are currently in development or are ready to be released via Frostbite that are there right now. So yeah, all genres. Now that BioWare are using it for RPGs, more driving games, FIFA, Madden, all these sports games.
And would that have been the plan from the beginning? I mean, would it have been, let's try and make this big enough to be something that we can use for everything, or did it kind of evolve that way?
It definitely evolved. In the beginning, it was just there for Battlefield.
Amazing.
And probably even when EA first started trying different genres, it was still felt like it was the Battlefield engine. And in some respects, it probably still feels that way. But yeah, definitely we've been now evolving the engine so it can just not be the Battlefield engine, but be the EA engine.
That's cool. It's got a cool logo as well. I like that.
The hand.
Everything should have a cool logo. Okay. In that instance, if it wasn't planned to kind of have it all encompassing, all genres and everything, how do you future-proof an engine in a world where things are literally changing by the week, right? How could you even begin to do that?
There's different aspects of that. Like I said, we've got game teams who are helping us expand the engine because, if we're now all of a sudden trying to make RPGs with the engine, they need to help us because they know how to make RPGs. We kind of know how to make an engine. And we get together and evolve the engine in that respect. But in terms of new technologies going forward, Frostbite is always trying to push the boundaries with fancy rendering techniques, destruction in Battlefield, things like that. We're obviously always talking to the game teams to say, hey, what are you thinking of not your next title, but the title after that? What do you think could be interesting to you that we need to start looking into right now? And like you say, continue to evolve the engine so that we're still being innovative. And really, it's a thing that people say, hey, look, wow, Frostbite's able to do that.
Yeah, that's, it must be such, even to comprehend it, to think about, new consoles, new games,
exactly.
et cetera, and then how... It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Kind of to bounce off the back of Joel, one of the things that we also do, if you take away the features, is like right down on the code level, we try and make our code testable. We make it modular and extensible so that, when you revisit it, we are able to adapt it and adjust it. So, even if you take away the games aspect of things, there's the sort of general software engineering best practices that we like to apply to help us in the future be able to change things and make additions. So that's also really important. Because we're building for a long-term, products. We want to make it quality.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. So working on an engine team as such, how are engineers then kind of split up within the disciplines that they may specialize in, and how would that fit, kind of into the greater picture?
Yeah, I could go for that one. We quite like to hire a mix of skills. So we hire, generalist programmers that are able to move freely between different parts of the engine and different technologies, kind of the kind of skills that you could throw any problem at and they could, with a bit of learning and a bit of skills, get stuck into.
Yeah.
Then on the other side of things, because of the things that we do, especially around physics here in Guildford, we like to hire specific skills and a background in physics. So the two work together, and often the team will be multi-skilled. So it won't be, it's almost like the Swiss Army knife of teams. The team will be, each person will serve a different role in the team and have their background will help them in a different kind of way. So we work together, and no one is better than the other. It's more like what a generalist brings is different to what, someone with a maths or physics background.
That makes sense. I know a lot of game designers who have maths degrees.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an obvious correlation there that I've not really considered before.
It all adds up.
Yeah, it does. It's nice. It's nice because with the maths, that was good. Okay, so you'd have more specialists. You'd have general, and you'd have a way to kind of fit them all into the team to make sure that you're utilising the most out of them. So how do you ensure that those teams who may have very differing kind of backgrounds and et cetera, how do you make sure that they all kind of work in unison within Frostbite?
With difficulty.
Yeah, it's a very hard problem. For sure. Especially when you're kind of talking about Frostbite as a whole being around the entire world. We've got teams in Vancouver, Stockholm, UK, and Melbourne, everywhere, and each of them have their different kind of ethoses and their ways they work. I mean, just from cultures, cultural from a country point of view. Brits are very different to the way Americans and Canadians act. We need this kind of higher overarching people who are in sync with each other. Mm-hmm. So, particularly in my role being a product manager of like physics, AI, and procedural, I got to then talk to the guys who are looking after animation or cinematics or rendering or core and make sure we're all on the same page of what we need to do to make our games better and doing, okay, DICE need this for the next Battlefield. What are we going to do about it? Or BioWare needs this. How can we kind of come together to give them what they want?
Yeah, I love that. I love that it all ultimately boils down to a group question. Like, how can we ensure that we're, being as efficient and helping as much as we can within the wider organisation going forward?
Yeah,
it's very cool.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword in itself because we want to try and help all these people, but all these people want to help at the same time. So we not that we try and pick or choose because we try and help everyone. It's not the case that FIFA brings in the big bucks, so FIFA get automatically every help that Frostbite can provide. We try and balance out, how can we push the boundaries with this team, but also kind of do this and get these guys going on board.
It sounds like a really, really, really big puzzle that's constantly moving.
Yeah, it's like Tetris on acid.
Oh, man. So some of the questions that I got from kind of moving back into the more engine-focused side of things, some of the questions that people on Twitter asked, I mean, there were questions like, how does it work? We're not. There's no way we can do that in a 20-minute interview. But say, stepping out of EA for a moment and heading to, bedroom indie developers, if they're looking to choose an engine, how would you even begin to make sure you're getting the right engine that would work for you?
It kind of boils down to what are you trying to do and what are you trying to make. I mean, if you're an indie developer, there's a bunch of options that are available to you that are...
Yeah, of course. Unfortunately, Frostbite is not available to those of you at home. Sorry, guys.
I was just about to go down that. But you really, as an indie developer, again, what functionality does that engine provide? I guess also, the monetary benefits as well. Like each of them have their different licensing models. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to make something viable, then that's obviously a thing you need to take into account.
Okay, and it's the reason that, for example, Frostbite was available to everyone.
Yep.
Would there be a reason that one engine would not fit all? I mean, is it a case that it's just the games that you'd want, the games that you're making, whether it's more, indie or more towards the A's?
Yeah.
It kind of depends on what you pick. It's literally that kind of...
In some respects, yeah, definitely. Frostbite is geared towards making AAA high-end titles, and you may kind of struggle to make something kind of small and indie, like a 2D shooter or something. Frostbite just doesn't support that. That definitely will come into play.
I'm learning all the time.
For the for the bedroom indie developer, I think also a big aspect of it is the fun, and using a game engine like Unity, for example, is super fun. Pick it based on how much fun you'll have too.
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I think I've said in interviews already, if we weren't all absolutely loving what we were doing, we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah. So let's jump back into. I mean, I don't really want to talk about challenges, but I suppose one of the biggest challenges of Frostbite is just the amount of people that are all kind of feeding into it. But is there anything outside of that is kind of a sticking point that you have to worry about, or things that you have to plan for, or is it just doing everything? Yeah, there's plenty there. I mean, your Frostbite, like you say, it's a lot of people are using it, a lot of people are developing it, although
we're quite smaller compared to, say, Unreal and Unity in terms of like engine size development. But within EA, a lot of teams are using it. So we need to make sure that we're not stopping them from doing what they want to do, which is to make games. So, we will get complaints pretty loud and clear that if something is not quite working or the workflow is not great, we'll get that feedback, which is to me a good thing, because that's really where Frostbite can benefit, because we do have these close partnerships internal with EA. We can have pretty deep dialogues with them and move to see how we can alleviate the pain points.
And again, and then you're evolving and developing something as a team, which is even more valuable than we made this great engine for you.
Totally.
So now we're all making this great engine.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And then the benefit of that is for the whole community, not just then, okay, well, we've made this thing better for DICE. It's like, okay, we've made it better for DICE, and now everyone else can take advantage of it.
Yeah. Not even to touch on the millions of people that are enjoying it from their sofas at home without even thinking about it.
Yeah, totally.
And that's what's so interesting about it, right? Yeah. That's why this conversation was one that I was really, really looking forward to, because it's the kind of stuff that if you are, on the, I'm not saying that coders and programmers aren't creative, because of course they absolutely are, but if you're in the kind of splurging creativity into the world as opposed to into code, you may not even consider that this thing is there all of the time, and it takes this huge amount of work, and all of these people are pooling all of their resources to keep it kind of ticking over, and you don't even know it's there. It's wonderful. Well, obviously it's there, but you don't think about it being there.
Yeah, totally. And traditionally before EA and most people were using Frostbite, there was actually a lot of duplication of effort. People were making the same systems over and over again. And just being able to consolidate that into a single central technology really then frees them to say, okay, well, I don't need to worry about saving loading because that's taking care of me. I can worry about this cool new thing that I want to add to the game.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about ultimately, is finding those cool things and finding the time to do it. So if it's enabling that, even better. How important would you say the work done in Guildford is to Frostbite as a whole, as a big moving machine?
Pretty important. So in Guildford, what we primarily concentrate on is physics. And so we write our own physics engine, or we've had our own physics engine for a long time now. We've been able to put that inside the Frostbite engine. So traditionally, Frostbite was using a third-party company, Havoc, for their physics. As we have our own internal physics engine and we then joined the Frostbite team, it just made sense that, hey, we should take advantage of this technology. But it's not just then the technology that you get. The benefit you also get is you've got this team of people who know how to use physics. They experienced and can then help the game teams progress. What cool new things can we do with physics? And just, again, having that deep partnership and that experience and the, what's the word? I guess the kind of collective intelligence around what we can do with physics.
Yeah. I hadn't even considered the fact that it's not, I mean, I don't want to say it's too new because I couldn't say for sure, but I imagine having someone specialising in physics on a games team is a fairly new thing, right? Like I can't think of a lot of teams I've worked on where I've actually had a physics specialist who's there to kind of feed into the rest of that team.
Well, you say that. So I give this talk that I give to kind of like school kids, and I always say physics has been in games since day one. Think of Pong.
Of course. Yeah, that's physics. For sure.
So that's just evolved. But you're right in that most game teams don't have like specialists that handle physics. You'll have a gameplay programmer who will then dabble with physics. Okay. But having that expertise or central expertise around with physics can really push the boundaries.
And I guess it's been so important because of how much we've progressed with the storytelling that games gives us and how you need to feel that you're immersed in that. Physics must be a huge... Because you don't even realise it. When you're in a game and you pick something up and it doesn't feel right, it is immediately like, whoa. But again, when it is working right, you don't think about it. When everything does go as it should, it's fine.
Exactly.
It's jarring when it's
totally.
not there.
When physics is doing its thing, you don't realize it. And really, now you're kind of noticing more and more of those things that are going wrong with the games because we're pushing so much for like photorealism. You expect everything to also be as realistic as possible. So when physics goes wrong or when animation looks off, you're like, okay, well, my character looks, perfectly human, and I can totally believe that this is not even a digital character in some cases. And it's like, well, but it's not moving how I expect it to move.
One tiny little thing or one aspect of it will really give it away.
So working in physics has kind of ruined some games for me because you're like, that's not right.
I can see that. I can see how that would happen. Thankfully, my Animal Crossing binge doesn't seem all that impacted by physics, so it's still going okay. I mean, it really is one of those things that when it's not quite right, it's blatantly obvious that it's not quite right. And again, you may not even realize that that's physics that is not being fine-tuned enough within that game.
Although sometimes physics gets the blame accidentally or incorrectly, which I've seen quite a lot of times. It's like, the physics of that is terrible. It's like, it's not actually physics that's doing
this is it, because it's a buzzword and it's a thing that people have heard, so now it's something that can be regurgitated without having the full information. The internet's a fun place. It is a fun place. So what would you say Frostbite excels at within EA games?
Everything, I want to say. Can I say everything?
That's the EA line. Done. Bam. Just we'll put a little twinkle on your teeth when you smile.
I mean, I'd like to think we're quite well known for our rendering. Our rendering team is
it's real
makes
pretty.
some beautiful things. Yeah, some beautiful things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things like destruction is kind of touched upon that before with Battlefield. That's another thing that Frostbite is definitely known for. I mean, internally, our animation technology and our physics technology, we kind of seen from what other people are doing. We're definitely leading the line there in some cases. You just look at some of the animations in some of our sports games like FIFA, Madden, UFC. I mean, we're really kind of pushing the boundaries there. Compared to a game like The Last of Us, like the animation there is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but they have an army of people that are kind of making those animations, like, maybe like 400 animators or something like that. And compared to how many animators we have in EA working on a particular title, like what the technology allows those people to do is really get a high quality done.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I mean, I can vouch for the prettiness. I can certainly, I mean, my technical knowledge takes me about that far. Very pretty.
Shiny pixels.
Yeah, real shiny.
Yeah.
So where would an engine come into play if you were porting for crossplay, for example? How, what strain is the engine going to be under that it may not be prior to that? And how do you plan for that with an in-house engine?
In some respects, those are what like baseline expectations that people feel that should be part of the engine. Like, okay, a new generation of consoles is about to come out. Frostbite needs to be working on that. Yeah. So there's definitely pressure on that for us to be just ahead of the game and ready and up and running, which kind of Dean was talking about before, like testing and stuff. That puts a burden on that kind of infrastructure that we've got to really rely on. But yeah, I mean, same goes for things like crossplay. Just having that ability in the engine is something that people feel should be a given, or that's what they expect out of an engine to provide. And
again, I mean, the fact that you've been able to bring crossplay in is, I mean, it is an example of future proofing.
It totally is. Totally is.
Yeah, because I mean, even 3 years ago, we probably wouldn't have thought. Well, maybe a bit more. 6 years ago, we wouldn't have thought that crossplay was something that we'd see, with the two of the big three at all. And to even have been able to go, okay, now we're going to be doing this. I mean, it must be incredibly well planned, or at least thought out.
Very, very well thought out. I mean, sometimes it's hard to truly kind of plan some of this stuff out because it's a moving target that we're trying to.
You just never know when Phil Spencer's going to tweet saying, "I love PlayStation, let's be best friends." You just don't know. Yeah.
Exactly. So as soon as he tweets, we've got to be ready to then run onto it and see what we can do.
Yeah, it must be for the industry, for gamers, crossplay is absolutely amazing. But for those that are trying to fiddle out the back end, I don't envy at all. It must be some hard work going on there.
Yeah. Well, there's always a next crossplay, I guess, kind of cloud and things like that are the kind of next big things that we've got to be worrying about. So
and we're always at the very front of whatever these new things are, and we have to learn on the job.
Yep.
We are very lucky to get to deal with all of these cutting edge things. But my word, it's a lot to take on. Is there any, I mean, again, kind of talking about future proofing, but is there any kind of allowing for like modding or stuff? Do you think about that in the first instance? Is that kind of all part of the plan, as it were?
So that's again driven mostly by the game teams. So a game will have a particular thing that they want to mod. Say, take a BioWare team, or a BioWare game like a Dragon Age. They'll be like, well, I want my character to be any character. I want it to be a dwarf or an elf. And I want these specific facial features. So I mean, I guess that's a kind of modding or a user-generated content, which we try and do. We've struggled a little bit with some of this in terms of being able to, say, give an editor to allow people to make like levels and stuff, things like that. Though people have tried. I think there's some really cool like Battlefield 3 user created like level editings and stuff like that. yeah, they some of the stuff that they're able to make is pretty awesome.
I really am a big fan, obviously a big fan of community, of doing what I do, but it's always so interesting to put your game in the hands of someone else and then the thing that you
See
get
what
back
they can
is
do,
like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
on earth? This
Yeah.
is mental, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so last question, team.
Going to be a good one.
I'll make it 2.
All right.
Jinxed it. Are there any kind of insights you could give us as far as cool tech for the future of Frostbite? Or games, whatever you're cool.
Plenty, I would say. Yeah.
Don't think it's a secret anymore, but we could talk about our hair technology.
Yep, true.
Yeah. So there was actually a conference recently, Digital Dragons in Poland, where one of our teams that work in Stockholm and a little bit here talked about hair technology, so strand hair.
This is the pretty stuff again.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm in
really,
it.
really pretty stuff.
But that's really exciting. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
let's
how,
see the
how
pretty
would
hair.
you explain or describe it, like how pretty it is? I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, the strand-based stuff is really I want to say a big step change into how we simulate and render hair. So before, you typically going into some technical details, you'd like have a card that says, okay, my hair kind of looks like this, and you put all these cards on people's heads, and like the rendering is also attached to the card as well, as long as the simulation. But that's not how hair is. It's strand based. So we've actually gone to that system and made it model it like it realistically is. And so you just get the rendering looking pretty amazing, and then the simulation behind it as well, especially for kind of like long hairs.
And that is one of the places, like we were talking about with physics, that's one of the places where the illusion can fall down. Right?
Exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're used to, as a woman, you know what hair does, looks like, how it reacts, what it does in all of these situations.
Yeah.
And when you don't see someone with frizzy hair in the rain, you get very upset. Not that I'm saying you should put that in. But yeah, it's all about creating another world, and really, really immersing yourself in that.
Yeah.
And any tiny little detail that, again, to the outer world, hair tech.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like something that would be important, but of course it is. Of course it is, because we want to, make this as tangible,
Exactly.
as real as possible.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Okay, last question, I promise. I'm not going to split this one anymore. This is it. Advice for anyone out there looking to do what you do, in any capacity, whether just working for EA, specialising, whatever it may be. What advice would you give people?
I would say, regardless of whether you want to get into game engines or not, have a play with the game engines that are free out there. Run through the tutorials. I mean, if you look online, there's so many amazing tutorials and examples and demos where you can your mind can just wander and go free, and you can get super creative. That could be an avenue to go down, the sort of creative side, and then you could take it down, like learning how to, modify things and program onto that, like learn programming. Often we'll speak to people or interview them who haven't really ever even experimented with a game engine before. And that's regardless of whether you're coming to work on a game team. It's that sort of like, just, there's a lot of free learning out there that's really fun, and you can have a great time doing it too. And that gets the ball rolling and gets us a good talking point.
Yeah, good first step for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Try things out. Like Dean says, go and play around with the stuff that's there. Maybe try and kind of modify the engine to try and do something different. If you're trying to be an engine programmer, being an engine programmer is quite different to being a programmer or even just working on a game team. Because with a game team, you're trying to ship a product, so you get this ramp up, and then you're about to ship the game, and it's like, crap, I'm going to ship the game. Not that we like to do crunches, or we don't really do crunches anymore, but you definitely kind of come to
the ramp up.
The ramp up. Whereas we kind of just have that steady burn, where it's not everything's on fire at the same time, or everything coming up to that point where everything's on fire. It's just like, there's a few fires here now and then, and we've just got to keep dousing them.
That's it. We all have fire extinguishers. It's going to be
exactly.
fine. Yeah.
So it's more of that kind of steadiness. For me, the differentiation between working on a game versus working on a game engine. That's one of the big differences that you kind of, and I don't think most people realize that's the difference in between, like, just being on a game team versus being on an engine team.
I mean, from my experience with getting games ready for launch, that sounds like an absolute dream. Just to have a steady, okay, there'll be a few little ups and downs, but ultimately we know the lay of the land here. It's going to be good. Guys, thank you so much for coming down. That was so interesting to have a chat with you both. It was lovely to meet you.
Thanks for having us.
And I'm sure many people will find this conversation very interesting indeed. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.